I'm Rena Striegel. Welcome to Ag Inspo, the podcast that focuses on innovation and creativity in agriculture. In my travels across the U.S., my mind is blown by the farmers, ranchers, and business owners who are contributing to the richness of the agricultural landscape. My hope is that by sharing their stories, you will be inspired to have the courage to break through and bring an idea you have to life. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Ag Inspo. Today, we're going to be talking to Jeff Kanger, and he is the president of First State Bank in Lincoln, Nebraska. But we're not only going to be talking about banking today. First State Bank has done a very innovative thing by joining into a partnership with Lambertson Financial. And today we're going to learn how this amazing alliance has created some very cool opportunities for farmers in transition. So let's bring on Jeff and let's hear what he's up to. Jeff, thank you so much for taking some time out of your afternoon to talk with me a little bit. You know, we have gotten to know each other over the last year, and this has been some topic that I've been excited to bring to the Ag Inspo podcast simply because, you know, as a bank and a banker, you're super cool and doing some unique things, but then you're also in an alliance with another company that I'm sort of being a little bit secretive about because I want everybody to hang around so they can hear about one of the truly unique things that you and the bank are doing. But before we get into all of that, why don't you just take a couple of seconds and introduce yourself to the audience?
Rena, thanks a lot for having us. Jeff Kanger, I'm the president of First State Bank, Nebraska, and we're a community bank here in Nebraska that is over 100 years old, and we take being a community bank very, very seriously. We've decided to grow so we can grow our communities, grow ourselves, and also grow our producers. And we're just under $1 billion in assets. And what that means is we have more opportunities to give back to support football fields and things like that. But we also know, like a lot of folks, we need to continue to grow to be competitive in the market. So while we are a community bank, we lend throughout the nation. And really our niche in the world is being a solution provider, largely for ag producers. Over 60% of our bank touches agriculture, either directly or indirectly. We do a little bit of commercial lending and a little bit of 1 to 4 family, but agricultural production is where it's at for First State Bank, Nebraska. I've been at the bank now over 11 years, and we've about tripled in size over the time. And we feel like we're just keeping up with the waves and the trends. So when someone comes to us and says, hey, I'm trying to grow my operation, what can you do? We can help them from a bank standpoint, but we can also empathize because we're trying to grow our business as well and remain competitive. And so the opportunity to do that over the years has been amazing. And we use a couple tools to kind of distinguish ourselves from a lot of other community banks. We love getting to yes. Our yes just might not be the most traditional path because we're trying to find that solution for somebody. We use FSA lending quite a bit for new and beginning farmers. We've done FSA loans from Oregon down to Louisiana, over in Ohio. Again, we do that from Nebraska. We actually employ a couple folks in a smaller community in our state that they can serve the country using our network and using technology. And so FSA is a huge tool we've leveraged to help producers. Something we also do on the ag production side to help folks, not everyone has 30% down or 40% down, which most bankers ask for. We use the Small Business Administration, and it's not commonly understood that you can use SBA financing in the agricultural sector. An example of that would be poultry production. We financed dozens of barns within Nebraska and the Midwest using loans through the Small Business Administration. What does that mean in application? That means a 20-something that graduated that thinks poultry production is a way to diversify the operation has an opportunity to get in the game without coming up with $400,000 or $500,000 down. It's not uncommon for a 4-barn poultry site to cost, this day and age post-COVID over $2 million.
Right.
How does a young person get back in the game or get in the game at that? Well, We use an SBA guarantee to come in and give them an opportunity to enter with much less money down, amortize that loan over a responsible period of time, so they're not strapped with debt service right out of the gate, but also giving them an equity provider as well. So a couple things we do with FSA and SBA that really helps us be competitive to help people grow their business.
So that's kind of unique, because most of the time when people think about those lenders, they think about having to go somewhere else. They don't think about going to their bank and meeting with an expert in those two disciplines right in the bank itself. So that definitely is something very unique that I was really surprised the first time we talked about it, that I was like, whoa, that's cool.
Yeah.
So how does that make it easier for the client? I mean, there's obviously some things that logically you would think would make it easier, but like in terms of shortening up the time it takes to get an approval, have you found that collaboration between those, areas of expertise makes it easier, quicker, simpler? Is there more creativity that happens because people are brainstorming? Like, what is the experience that the client receives from that?
No, I appreciate you asking, because when we usually lead with FSA or SBA, I hear something like, I've heard that's really difficult. And, it can be. I recognize that. However, we've invested to become a preferred lender with FSA and SBA. And that means we're kind of driving the ship on that loan and the approval process. And that would be one distinguishing thing with our shop. I think that brings value to our clients. We've done it before. We have the relationships. We can get to yes. I'll use the example of the poultry production. When you're putting in a poultry facility, there can be, depending on where you're at, quite a few environmental regulations. Well, we cut our teeth on that 3-4 years ago and found the path that, of course, respects the environment, but also the producer. These projects can't wait 9 months on regulatory red tape. Time is a factor. Inputs and expenses are not really going down. We've got to get these projects done. So by being a preferred lender, both with SBA and FSA, I think goes a long way in facilitating that client experience. And the second thing, with being a community bank, it's the value of a person. Technology is great, and we do the best we can to automate as much as possible. We did about $70 million in PPP loans, Paycheck Protection Program loans during COVID, all electronic. But we also had people behind the technology that were there to help with tax return submissions. And so how does that relate to FSA and SBA? We have experts on staff who that's what they do all day, every day. They understand, and most of them are in ag production. So they get the FSA side. They also get the producer side. They also get the family continuity side, because they're trying to grow their own operation. So what we're hoping to share with folks is we're that lender that's been there and is there throughout the experience. We don't just hand you off to a government official to try and get an approval. We walk that process with you. And in many situations, it's a journey we're walking ourselves, because we're all largely involved in agriculture one way or another. So the two things I'd highlight for folks that say, I've heard that was a bad experience. Well, do they have a dedicated person that does FSA and SBA lending all day? And also, are they preferred lenders? We bring both of those tools to the table to help that person, get to yes, and do so where they feel good at the end. Nobody likes bludgeoning themselves to finally get there. You want to focus on production. You want to focus on your operation. It's our job to help you through that process so you can handle your marketing, handle your inputs, handle your bird contracts, and protect your margins.
Let's talk a little bit about ag diversification. And I know this isn't specifically about the bank itself, but I'm finding this to be, one of the conversations that we hear a lot at the farm level, which is, are we sustainable into the next generation if we just continue to do what we're doing? So can we support the number of families that are coming in? Can we, leverage our land base appropriately? So from the bank's perspective, how often are you, fielding requests or conversations from clients that are coming in and saying, we want or need to diversify. Can you help us? Is that something that you're hearing a lot of right now?
I would say that trend is increasing. 10 years ago, there wasn't a lot of chat on that. But I would throw out maybe 10 years ago, diversification meant I need to get a job in town. And with, protein and hog or poultry production, maybe there's a way for that town job to come back to the farm.
Mhm.
And that's something we've heard quite a bit of, especially recently. So you've got, and we call it protein production, coming back, integrators and contracts being attractive for folks from diversification. People talk about, organic conversions. There's a lot of things within kind of the eco-friendly space or alternative agriculture production that people are looking at, not only for their operation, the mom and pop family farm, but also for that operation looking to attract kids to return.
Mhm.
There has to be something to come back to. And I feel like we're coming to that moment in time where eyes and ears are wide open for opportunities, because we love the lifestyle of rural America. We love the community. Bandwidth is there so technology can support an operation. And speaking of technology, maybe they're able to do more now than their conventional row crop operation of the past because they freed up some time.
Yeah.
Well, what can I do with that time to inject value into our operation? So those are all things we're hearing about right now as folks look to really set their family or their farm up for the next 10 to 20 years. It's going to look a bit different from the previous 20. And I just think we're in that sweet spot of what are those things and what are my financing opportunities to get them done? Because they're all capital intensive.
Yeah. You've mentioned poultry production just a little bit. So I'm going to use this as the sort of the example for my question. But if you've got, a family that has historically just produced row crop, and they come into the bank and they go, hey, we want to put up a poultry barn. So these are people that have no experience with poultry, just they know they need to diversify. What are some of the conversations that you have with them to help them prepare for that? Because maybe from a cash flow perspective, they can finance it, but what does the bank look for in terms of preparedness to take on that diversification opportunity?
That's a great question, especially if your family's not been exposed to that in the past. So how do we address kind of the servicing of that opportunity? And what we're seeing a lot of is whether it's in poultry or hogs, again, in protein production, there's a lot of contract integrators out there getting into the space, whether it's Costco putting up poultry barns or Smart Chicken doing poultry barns. On the hog side, you have Cactus as an example. They're also on the beef side. So the question I'd have for that person that came in is, who's your contract partner? What's your marketing plan for those birds? What we've experienced, whether it's hogs or poultry, is those contract partners have an incredibly vested interest in your success. And they will all talk to someone that doesn't have previous experience. In fact, they're selling potential producers on their experience, right? We can coach you. We can show you. Here's our production plan. Here's our training. Here's our system. So I would first not caution anybody. Maybe they've been intrigued by this, but they've thought, hey, I have the only eggs I've gotten have been at the store. That's okay. We can get you in touch with someone because they're looking for work ethic. They're working for lifestyle, someone that knows what it's like to get up early and work hard. They will train and coach by and large. And so we would really underwrite the partner and their plan. We can get behind, we can bring value on the numbers and the loan structure to make sure it doesn't, it's a good opportunity for them. But we would also give them some questions and feedback to ask their potential production partner, what support are you giving me? I'm giving you, a piece of the family ground. I'm giving you my downstroke on a finance package. How are you going to help me be successful? Because what I think people will find is the contracts look similar, right? They're all out there. They're pretty close. But what one partner told us in the past is look for the best fit, the person that's going to coach you and train you that you connect with, because you will have hard times. But if you've picked the right contract partner, they'll have the support system to help get you through to where 2 or 3 years you're very, very comfortable with it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's a great point of how banks can be partners, not only in just helping with financing, but also helping to make sure that, you've thought all the angles through, that you're talking to the right people, that you're getting into business with the right company. I think that that's a really valuable thing that your bank in particular does, because it's experienced in doing that, which I think is very cool, especially from a community bank standpoint, because there just, quite frankly, is not very many community banks left.
No, everything's, consolidating in time, and our community roots are important. And our strategy is, the more we grow, the more jobs we can have in the communities we serve. But just one other aspect of what you mentioned, kind of from the holistic risk underwriting standpoint, and something we've helped folks with in the past is, we also have an insurance agency. And sticking with the protein production side, that insurance agency can come in, maybe you've already built, right?
Yeah.
Do you have the right coverage in place? And I'll use an example here in Nebraska, where, there was a barn site that didn't have replacement cost, and 95-mile-an-hour winds come through, and you have some roof damage. Well, if you're missing replacement costs, your claims process might feel unpleasant. And so that's just another piece of the risk bucket that a good community lender, a good lender will look at. It's great to save a little bit of money on the premium, but if you've given up hundreds of thousands of coverage that your cash flow can't support, that's a terrible experience. So I just wanted to get a plug in there too, as folks look at this and look at their global operation. The insurance piece, is something important to review as well. Don't just race to the lowest premium because you're trying to support cash flow elsewhere. Make sure you have the coverage you need, because we're all in the Midwest or on the coast where there's other types of storms. It's going to happen.
Oh, yeah.
And you want that insurance to be there. So that's just another piece of risk mitigation.
Yeah. And I think even from a continuity standpoint, when you think about, the longevity of the operation and the continuity, that insurance piece of it is such a key factor in not only ensuring the stuff and the things we produce, but also the people who are so key to those operations. So absolutely. I think that's a really valid point, and how, because the insurance agency is associated with the bank, you guys are ag experts, your insurance professionals are ag experts also, which I think is another very cool synergistic thing about your businesses, is the way that they're all developed to kind of support and specialize in agriculture.
Mm-hmm. You bet. Yeah.
It's really cool.
The whole team.
Yeah. So just give me the stats, how many staff do you have? How many locations? How many ag lenders?
Sure. So between the bank and the agency, we have 150 employees. We're in 17 locations throughout Southeast Nebraska. So I'll just name drop a couple towns: Utam, Plattsmouth, Lincoln, Beatrice, Wilbur, really that corridor. Mm-hmm. And so that's our geographic footprint. But again, through technology, we have clients in over 35 states in the country, and we provide that Midwest service, which is nice and responsive and available. Yeah. Really coast to coast. And that's a key part, of our growth. We want to be in the Midwest. It's our roots. It's who we are and where we're from. But man, if we can serve, the country from this platform, we're going to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it kind of takes the word community to a whole different level when you say, we're in 35 states.
Yeah, but we're still walking in the parade on Saturday. So
that's right. That's awesome.
It works.
That's awesome. So let's talk a little bit about the very unique thing that your bank is involved in, which is a company called the Westwind Alliance. Do you want to talk a little bit and describe that to the audience?
Sure. No, thank you. And Westwind Alliance, I mentioned kind of that national footprint with the community touch. Westwind Alliance is a partnership between First State Bank Nebraska and Lambertson Financial out of California. And it's really an attempt to problem solve for a lot of our customers and folks that are out there. And that is, we talked about a lot of stuff for growing my operation or starting a new business. What about the other stage, or a stage later when someone's looking to exit? Maybe there aren't heirs on family that want to come back. What do you do with the ground then, or the whole operation? Or maybe it's not an exit, maybe it's a conversion. I've been in dairy production. Now I'm looking to pivot to almonds or row crop to cattle, or it could be row crop to poultry. Westwind Alliance is our partnership to try and have a solution for folks looking to, exit ag or convert within ag, or maybe structure some marketing and grain sales in a more tax conducive environment. So that's conceptually what we're trying to solve. How do we do that? We work with Lambertson Financial on structured installment sales. That's the short of it. And that's taking a sale and extending it out over time. And that's what the structured sale piece is. But that's fine unless you want the cash today. And that's where the bank comes in. So Lambertson Financial helps with the structured installment sale. First State Bank Nebraska can come in and actually lend on that piece to provide the liquidity that folks need, again, whether they're exiting or looking to convert their operation. So think of it as kind of a next business stage product that's separate from a 1031 exchange. It's separate from a complete liquidation. It's just another tool for how people may transition their operation or exit agriculture down the line.
Yeah, let's talk about it from a transition standpoint, because you mentioned dairy, and dairy has definitely been an industry that has not had an easy go of it the last few years. And we have seen the number of dairy producers decline. And so let's just play an example out just so that people can kind of visualize what this looks like. So let's just say we've got a dairy producer in Minnesota, and the dairy producer says, dairy is just not really where we want to be. We want to transition out of dairy and into another type of agriculture. Maybe it's, a custom agricultural business of some kind. So they come to Lambertson Financial. They say, we want to sell our dairy cattle and potentially our dairy facility to Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith says, yep, I agree. So Lambertson Financial then draws up the sale.
Yes.
Okay. So now Mr. Smith now owns the dairy, and there is payments being made toward the family that's converting. But those monthly payments aren't going to get them very far because they want to convert into a whole nother business. So talk about how Lambertson Financial and the bank then get that money to the farmer.
Yeah, I love your example using the dairy. And in fact, any conversion, most of our deals are conversions rather than exits, which is very exciting because ag is continuing. Mm-hmm. There's a legacy to extend. So in that dairy situation, let's say after debt and everything free and clear, it was $1 million on the sale. Okay. So we've structured $1 million at that time. That $1 million goes into a trust account backed by U.S. Treasuries. Very strong, very safe. But if that dairy, I think you said, did you say Minnesota?
Yep, dairy in Minnesota.
If that dairy in Minnesota then maybe wanted to plant hazelnut trees or something like that, they're going to have a capital expense. They're going to have infrastructure expense. So what we can do on that $1 million that went into the trust account, First State Bank Nebraska can come in and lend about $900,000 on that day one and provide that $900,000 to the family that had sold the dairy that they can use for infrastructure improvements, trees, all sorts of things to convert their operation without accelerating the taxes they would have experienced had they just taken the $1 million from the sale. That's the big piece from the structured installment. It's a business strategy to manage your tax exposure, but then get you the capital you need to grow your operation. Otherwise, they would have been dependent on, maybe that structured installment sale was $1 million over 10 years, so just $100,000 a year. Well, instead of getting that trickled out over a period of time through our loan, they could realize $900,000 of that out of the gate to get their operation going, to get trees in the ground and start building that cash flow for the future. So that's the short of it. We can do 95% of the value of the structured sale in a pledge loan. And the neat thing is, playing on your example with the dairy, maybe they weren't sure what they wanted to do. And year 2 or 3 down the line, then they decided that, hey, I need that capital. I want to kind of rebuild my operation. We can lend down the line too. It's not a decision they have to make the moment they decide to utilize a structured installment sale. The loan decision can come down the line or never at all.
Yeah.
You can do a structured sale without ever taking out a pledge loan, no problem. But if you're looking to diversify, like your example was, a pledge loan could come in really handy to help on capital and infrastructure expenses to get the new operation going, whatever that may be.
Yeah. Okay. So does this only work if it's like, for instance, I guess my question is, like, if I'm the daughter of a farmer and I want to buy out my dad, can I use this product if it's an interfamily sale?
Sure. So a lot of that decision is going to be with your tax professional and your attorney on what's the best transition mechanism. Is it to buy from dad, gifted from dad, step up in basis from dad? There can be a lot of things that come into play on whether or not this is right for you. What I would say is this is not the tool for everybody, but it's one that everyone should know about within the family operation, because your buyer is really kind of independent of the transaction, right? They're grabbing and going, and this could be a tool, dad may use if needed. But in terms of kind of that specific, but a tax situation, what we would do, we don't replace the CPA, we don't replace the lawyer. That's a kind of like transition point. It's a team approach.
Right.
Bring those decision makers into the room to see if this is a strategy that makes the most tax and business succession sense for your family.
Yeah, I think the one thing I love about Westwind's model is that it brings another tool that not very many people have ever heard of, nor have they ever, probably known someone who've done it. I mean, installment sales, we all know what those are. We know what buying people out over time looks like. We understand being able to, pull the tax consequence out of 1 year and dragging it over multiple years. Like, everybody really understands that. But I think what the real frustration is for a lot of people is, like, if I pull the payments out over time, then I have to wait till I accumulate some of that money to maybe be able to do the next thing. And so the thing that I really love about this product is it allows you to escalate the, getting the money in hand while still not changing the tax, the tax play that the installment sales allows for. And it also is, kind of gives you the best of both worlds. You get the money to play with, but the taxes don't hit all at one time. So I think that it's just a really very innovative way to put these packages together.
No, and thanks. We've put a lot of time into kind of the experience and the approval, because what we found is maybe folks knew about the structured installment sale, but maybe they didn't know about the ability to take a loan. And so they would go to a seminar and they'd hear about the structured installment sale, and then they go back to community bank X. It's never done it, isn't sure, who's your partner, how does this work? And really, when you get into those questions, something that may have been a great strategy dissolves because the team is not in place to execute on it. And that's where, over years working with Lambertson Financial out of California, we know Andrew knows us, and we bring that team approach to, again, not replace anybody, but just be at the table. We look at a lot of deals that just aren't fits. That's okay. Like, we're not here to sell a sale or sell a loan. This has to be a good strategy, and that takes time, working with CPAs and working with lawyers. But there's nothing worse than having the right strategy, but not the team but missing the team that can execute on it.
Yeah.
And I just want to fine point that off your previous comments. We've been doing these for over three years, coming on 4 years now. We know our partner knows us, so we can execute if this is something that you think is good for your operation. You don't have to then go and explain it to your, banking partners and start all over. We've done it. We get it.
Yeah. And I think that that's such a great point, is that there is nothing that will kill an opportunity faster than having a professional that doesn't know what it is or how it works, because then they just by nature have to be cautious on your behalf and they shut the deal down. They won't go research it. They just shut it down to, and try to move you into a more traditional path. So I think that that's such an important thing to say is, making sure that you're not trying to get a professional who's never done one of these to buy into it, because the experience will not be good. But to really reach out and talk to you more if someone's out there going, oh my gosh, that sounds like exactly what we need to do. It would help us achieve our goals as a business and as a family. I would just encourage you, don't try to go and sell that to your CPA who doesn't know anything about it. Call Jeff first and let Jeff talk to your CPA.
Absolutely. We love that. We learn something every time. Every situation's different, and that, your listeners are fantastic to work through this. This is a tailor-made product for people.
Yeah.
It looks different every time. And you're either a bank that frustrates the heck out of you and you don't want to do them, or you're a bank that enjoys learning and understanding new applications. And so that, I just throw that out for the benefit of your listeners. Your situation's unique. Don't apologize for it. It's your operation. We'll lean into it and figure it out. But every situation's a little bit different. So you want those folks that know what they're looking at and can give you the advice, because you're making a decision here that is incredibly significant for yourself, your heirs, and what your operation may look like in the future. But don't think your situation doesn't count. Run it through. People say, kick the tires on it a little bit. You're not wasting anybody's time. It's what we do. We try and figure out if this is a potential solution. And then you and your tax professionals can decide if you think it's the best solution for you. Right. That's a family for your family, and that's a decision for your family and your team.
Yeah. What have been some of the, maybe just share your favorite success story that has occurred because of this product?
Oh man, that's, if I may, maybe just two.
You can share two. I'll let you do that, because we love success stories.
One was an operation that was actually out. It was a conversion, like we just mentioned, and it was a dairy that made a strategic decision to pivot towards almonds. And the comment the person made at closing was, now I get to use my money to grow my operation. Before, I thought I was going to lose most of what I built. And that was a feel good for the team, because the farm kept going and they felt like they had earned and worked themselves into something. And that the short of it was, were they exiting completely, or were they able to diversify and grow in almonds? So that was one thing. I love that story. The family's still in production. They're good friends of the bank today. And we were able to provide a solution. The second one would be just a situation where there was no conversion. It was an exit from the space. And that family thought, I guess we just have to pay the taxes, because for them, a 1030, something we run into a lot is a 1031 exchange.
Sure.
And then folks feel like they have to go find something, and then find something at what value. And you get this urgency, and you really start to see values propositions shrink.
Yep.
And people kind of come under pressure. Well, this is a great tool as an alternative to a 1031 exchange. And, this was a family that ultimately didn't take the loan. And I just want to share with your viewers, us not getting the loan isn't what this is about. Us telling people of other opportunities is what this is about. They used a structured installment sale to build basically a 15-year annuity for this couple. And they built their own retirement income, really a pension on their hard work, and they didn't lose it to taxes or other things at that stage of their life. Yeah. And seeing them get that benefit for their enjoyment, for their peace of mind at retirement was a feel good. And so that's why I share one of our wins wasn't even a loan relationship for the bank. It was just a family that we were able to help make aware of this that use the structured installment sale, never ask for the pledge loan. They may, who knows what 5 years has, but at the time it was getting them the solution they needed that was the best fit for them. And that's just as much a feel good as closing a big loan.
Yeah. And I think that that's one thing that really paralyzes people when we're talking about, making changes to our farming operations or getting into a succession discussion is, that fear of that the taxes will take it all, right? Taxes are nursing home. And farm families are just very acutely aware that they do not want their money to go to the government. They want their money to stay in their communities, in their families. They want it to, be very localized. And so I think that example that you just shared is wonderful, because for a lot of farmers, the thought of exiting a farming business with no successors, where they're just selling assets, is terrifying, because not only are they exiting a business that they love, but then they're also faced with the potential of just incredible tax ramifications, where they're seeing a huge chunk of what they've built go out the door in year one of their transition. And so I love that there are products like this out here that will allow people to control that.
Yeah. And this product also, the structured installment sale, works well for maybe that producer that also has some debt. That's something else we didn't talk about.
Yeah.
Maybe the timing is right, but I have an operating line. Well, by the time I clear my operating line and then I've got the tax consequence, what's left? And the point is, there's something. And if there's a different way to do that deal to where your pie is more equitable to the work you put into the pie, that's what we're all about. And we have done several loans where we'll come in with a bridge loan to pay off the debt and then structure the remaining piece. And without getting into all the details on one of those opportunities, that was the difference between a family taking home $80,000 at the end of the transaction or $480,000 through structured installment sale and a pledge loan. So we are talking meaningful numbers for folks to have a phone call or look into this a little bit more. For those listening that are big on Google and want to do some of their own homework, Internal Revenue Code Section 453 is something you can Google and look into, and it lays this tool out. You can read legal opinions and accounting opinions on it. I'm not a lawyer or an accountant, but that's just something, if someone's intrigued, they can take away from this as kind of a poke around and see what this is all about. It's been around. It's just we're helping get the message out there that now there's a team on the structured sale and the bank side that can execute for you. And that's kind of our value proposition. Yeah,
no, that's awesome. So tell me a little bit about the size of deals, because I know that this is sometimes, like, if you're a really big producer, you're going to qualify for this stuff because you're a huge producer. When you're a smaller producer, sometimes you're like, oh, well, they wouldn't want to mess with me because I'm tiny. So, I've talked to Andrew too. And so I know the answer to this, which is why I want you to answer it, because I think people will be very surprised. But how small could a deal be where this still makes sense for Lambertson Financial and for you?
Sure. So on the bank side, we'll always work back from the structured installment sale. So we'll be 95% of that. On the structured piece, again, unique to each situation, but you can have deals sometimes as low as 250,000 where the numbers begin to make economic sense. And given where prices are at today, it doesn't take a lot of bushels of corn to get there.
Nope.
Or land values or things like that. So this isn't just a big person's game. There's a lot of entry opportunities, again, to at least have the phone call and say, hey, here's my situation. Does this make sense? Because we touched base on the land sale or the conversion side, but there's also an ordinary income piece where maybe you are a large producer and you're marketing hundreds of thousands of bushels a year. Well, you can also do that within a structured installment sale and take a pledge loan. That might be better than deferring something to the next year. Again, just another application of the tool for folks to look at. But the entry point of 2 to 250,000, again, just to see, does it make sense with fees? is generally attainable and not a barrier for folks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's awesome because I love products and solutions that are very flexible where, it's not a one size fit all. And if you don't fit in this very narrow little lane, you're not going to qualify for it. So the thing that I love about what Westwind Financial is doing is it applies to a lot of different situations. It can hinge on a lot of different kinds of collateral. It can work in any state. It can work in any kind of, ag production business. And so I think that that's one of the really cool things about this is it's very flexible and it allows a lot of people to explore this and utilize it. And it's not very exclusive. So I love that about it.
Yeah.
So
And that, no, please.
Oh, no, I want you to finish because I'm going to ask you a totally different question.
Yeah. And that was just one thing I wanted to impart on the listeners. They're not the first doing this. This has been done. We've done several deals, millions of dollars throughout the country. So if it is something that's intriguing or they're looking into, we're happy to reach out and talk to them and walk through their situation. But don't, if you're sitting in your combine listening this fall to this podcast, you're not the only one looking at this. There's other folks that have not only executed on it. Our biggest thing on the website, westwindalliance.com, and the customer testimonials.
Yeah.
I respect the heck out of you, Rena, but for those that want to fact check us with other producers that have gone through it, the testimonials are out on the website, westwindalliance.com, and we're updating those as we do deals to talk about their journey and their experience. So all I'm really on here to do is tell you we can execute, but talk to peers about it. What was it like? What was their journey and their story? Because you're not alone.
Mm-hmm. So as a professional that's been in the banking world for, quite a few years, what has been one of the cool things that you have learned as the bank has moved into this partnership? What was something that you learned that was like, oh my gosh, that's awesome?
Oh, geez. Oh man. So something I learned that was awesome is, and this is an ongoing thing that I'm learning, is there's a huge passion and desire for people to come back to the farm and be a part of an operation. There's also incredible pressure for that operation to be able to allow for that. Mm-hmm. And so what I've learned, I guess, in the almost 12 years now of community banking is there are ways to do it. And not everyone's journey is going to look the same, but there are ways. But it's about putting the team together to help that. Mm-hmm. Years and years and years ago, folks may have done their own agronomy and their own marketing, and it was all at the kitchen table. Well, now you're more the general manager, and you have your professionals around the room. And I guess what I've learned is, and that really makes me feel good, is we've grown our company, our bank, to the size where we can problem solve outside of just our area to a lot of different people. And by us leaning into some challenges and doing the whole roll your sleeves up, we've helped people come back to the farm. Yeah. We've taken families that maybe thought exit was the only path and helped them diversify. And now you're not just dealing with kids, there's grandkids coming in, and maybe there's a produce stand spinoff, and all these things that by being a solution provider, it's kind of an organization that leans into the challenge rather than the one that says we've never done that before. I'm in banking because of those journeys and those stories. We have got to keep up and not just respond, but be a leader of solutions for our producers. They pick what works best for their operate. That's their call. But phooey on us if we're not always coming up with ideas and, hey, here's something to look at. So I gave you a long, kind of a fluffy answer. But what I love is seeing those things, not just closing the deal, but looking back 5 to 7 years later and saying, holy cow, here's where we came because we found a way to get to yes, mm-hmm. or we found the solution to the tax problem that they had. I love doing that. I don't know what it'll look like 10 years from now.
Yeah.
But right now, that's what we've been able to do for folks. And I think that's part of the secret sauce to our growth over that period of time. We're going to continue to grow because our producers and our customers are growing.
Yeah.
And we want to keep up and do it together. We win together. And we're pretty serious about that.
Yeah. What do you think have been some of the biggest misconceptions or challenges as you've started to develop the Westwind Alliance? What have been some of the frequent things that you run into that clients are misinformed or maybe have the wrong idea about a product like this?
Yeah, the number one thing I would say is the awareness that a structured installment sale can be monetized through a pledge loan. That was our number one hurdle and the thing we continue to message on. Most folks think structured installment sale or land contract. I'm out there for 20 plus years. And yeah, in a land contract, that can be part of the risk. And you've got that risk on the buyer side. So raising the awareness that the structured installment sale can be used with a pledge loan has been the number one thing that we've just been trying to coach and educate people on. It seems like 9 out of 10 folks are aware of a 1031 exchange. It just rolls off the tongue.
Right.
But a structured installment sale and then a pledge loan kicker is just a point of coaching and educating, and then telling stories of where it worked. But I don't want your listeners to think the stories are restrictive. Just because we didn't share a story that's your situation doesn't mean this isn't a fit for you. It might very well could be. It might very well be. We just need to work through the mechanics of it. But just raising awareness that a structured installment sale can utilize a pledge loan to get you the liquidity has been the number one messaging challenge that we've had. And we're leaning into it by doing podcasts, getting information on the website, and going out and visiting producers, talking to CPAs and lawyers to figure out how we can execute this for people.
Yeah. So let me ask this, though. We've talked a lot about agriculture. Does this product work for non-ag businesses?
Sure. So yeah, a structured installment sale you can do on anything. So absolutely. The unique thing to agriculture, and why I mentioned Internal Revenue Code section 453 earlier, is that section of the code then allows for the pledge loan that we really educate ag producers on. So that is special treatment within ag production. Now, ag production is broadly written. It could also mean timber. It can mean aqua, marine life, lots of things within that. But yeah, you can have a non-ag business and still a structured installment sale might be a tool for you. You can even lend on it, but that's a different facility than what we've been talking about here. But the tax benefit is pretty exclusive to ag producers, and the ability to monetize that is unique to ag producers.
Yeah, which I think is very cool, right? Because we need all the breaks we can get.
Yes, absolutely.
So what do you mentioned several times that First State is just constantly evolving, growing, learning, bringing ancillary services together to create kind of collaborative teams within your world that can then, just serve clients more simply, more thoroughly. So what's next on the horizon for First State?
Geez. Okay. Well, our first next over the horizon is we're approaching $1 billion. So that's going to be a big move for us from the regulation standpoint. But from our loan, the traditional kind of banking side of things, we're really going to lean into the kind of business acquisition financing. So again, that could be within agriculture or other commercial angles as well. But we see a lot of opportunities in business acquisition financing coming in the next several years. And we'll utilize SBA as well as part of that. But that's just another way. Maybe someone wants to come back and live on the farm, but they purchased a fintech, something they can do from home. You can finance that business purchase. So that's really, we do that a little bit right now with wealth managers. I'm looking at some dental practices and things like that. But In addition, ag will always be our bread and butter, but we're going to look at business acquisition financing and just kind of silo that out by industry and practice is a key area of our growth. But right now we're really focused on the structured installment sales and the pledge loans. But down the line, we're going to be a solution provider for business acquisition financing.
Yeah, I think that's cool too, because you're in rural communities where it's very hard. If you have a business, who's going to buy it? Yep. And then how do you get it financed? And so I think that that's, not only cool from the standpoint of just, keeping rural communities vibrant and keeping businesses in place that can serve people that live in rural areas, but then also just, again, another area of expertise, because so many even ag operations are diversified with some sort of professional agribusiness that runs alongside of it. And so I think that's a really cool next step for you guys, that just to bring in more expertise and, just continue to build the vibrancy of the bank that way.
Yeah. And successful small businesses are successful main streets, and successful main streets are successful communities. And we are going to lean into that challenge. Someone, might not have an opportunity back on the farm, but maybe they can buy, local bakery or local newspaper, or they want to open a dental practice or a chiropractor's office. There are all sorts of things that people can do, again, to be part of a rural community. And sometimes financing is a piece of that. And we want to be the bank that says, well, let's take a look at that. Right. Yeah. I think we can. We've never done that before.
Yeah. So, I feel like we've covered a lot of territory, but is there anything that I didn't ask you that we need to talk about before we wrap up for this afternoon? Because we have covered a ton of ground today.
We did. And I'm very, very grateful for the opportunity. I would just leave with the opportunity for folks to call and ask. Hopefully you got across in this message. This isn't an aggressive sales thing. It's not, we then call you back 10 times and where are you at? We probably ask more questions than we do talking, just to understand if this is a fit and what we could do. So no, you covered everything really, really well. I would just add to anyone that's kind of scratching their head on what is this about, they're welcome, to reach out to us and give us a call. Check out the website at westwindalliance.com. There's a ton of literature there, but there might be some head spinning. That's okay. It took us a while to get around this too.
Yeah.
But now that we have, you can hopefully hear the passion in my voice. We're excited to share the story because there's something here for folks. Mm-hmm. Whether it's the best fit for them or not, that's their call. But there are other strategies out there.
So what we'll do, Jeff, is for everybody that's listening, we will have all of this information in the show notes. If you happen to be watching this video on YouTube, just look right below the video. All of Jeff's contact information, links to the bank, links to Westwind, they're all going to be there for you. Please do reach out to Jeff. And if you happen to go visit Jeff, you might get to meet the very lovely newest addition to the bank as a lovely little puppy named Trip.
Yes.
So, I got to put in a plug for Trip because, if nothing else, go see the puppy.
I'm glad you did. Yeah. We have a 3-month-old yellow lab puppy running around here. So you can give her a treat.
So, that was a unique for me. I've never met a bank that has a mascot. And so I'm just like, I'm all in on First Date, man. If you're going to have puppies running around, I'm in on that. So
she's a biter.
Yeah. Oh, well, only for a little while before her manners kick in. She just becomes this lovely brand ambassador for you. But yeah, so we'll have all of Jeff's contact information. Please do get in touch with him if you are, even if you're looking for, a bank that's going to listen to you and help you get your dreams put into action. I think Jeff is a great person to call, brainstorm with. You will not be wasting your time. So please check that out, get a hold of Jeff, and thank you again for listening to the podcast today. So Jeff, thank you so much. I can't wait to talk to you again very soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Rena.
You bet. This is Rena Striegel, and you have been listening to Ag Inspo, the podcast. Please visit my website at tomorrowiscoming.com and find me on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. If you haven't yet, please go to iTunes and subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. Join me next week for another inspirational episode where you will hear from another amazing entrepreneur who has had the courage to break through and bring an idea to life.